Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're taking a look at the all-new for 2014 Toyota Corolla. Now this is arguably Toyota's most important product in the United States, and they expect to sell over 330,000 of these in the 2014 calendar year. Let's hop in and take a look. Toyota decided to design two completely different front ends for the Corolla. We have this particular front end in the L, LE, and Eco model, and a slightly different bumper model, which we'll post a picture of right here, in the S model. I find the S front end slightly more attractive than the L and LE model that we see right here, but it is a little bit more unusual. So if you prefer your front end more traditional, then stick with the LE model. The LE and the S model are expected to account for 80% of the market share in Corolla models, split approximately evenly, with the base L model and the LE Eco model accounting for less than 10% each. So we're not going to spend too much time focusing on that base L model or the LE Eco model as a result. New for 2014 is a standard LED headlamp module in all models of Corolla, and that's including that base L model. That really is a breakthrough, not just in the economy segment, but in any mass market segment, period, because this will be the highest volume headlamp in the world that uses LED beams for its low beam. Now the high beams are still traditional halogen beams in here, but it's still a huge deal because up until this point, LED headlamps were really the exclusive purview of EVs, hybrid vehicles, or extraordinarily expensive luxury vehicles, and now you can find it right here on a Corolla. The Corolla has grown about 3 inches for the 2014 model year over the 2013 model, and a lot of that is right back here in this rear door. It means that the rear door is a little bit better proportioned in relation to the vehicle than it was in the 2013 model year. We also have pull handles, which is something that I prefer in a car over the lift-up handles on doors. I find these are a lot easier to use, and you end up scraping up the car just a little bit less. We have keyless entry and keyless go as optional in certain models of the Corolla for 2014, and if you opt for the S trim, you get integrated LED turn signals right here in the side view mirrors. Overall, I find the style of the 2014 Corolla elegant and restrained, definitely not as exciting as certain other entries in this segment. For me, I think the Kia Forte is just a little bit more attractive on the side as well as the front. Out back, we have an all-new design language for the 2014 Corolla with tail lamps that wrap from the body onto the trunk lid. I think that's a very good look, and it kind of reminds me of the 2013 Honda Civic, because that was one of the major changes for the Civic between 2012 and 2013 was the inclusion of these tail lamp modules in the trunk lid. It makes the rear end of the car look an awful lot more elegant and more luxurious than a cheap economy box, which doesn't have anything going on right here on the trunk lid. Depending on the model of Corolla you can get an optional backup camera, and you can have a trunk button right here, trunk release button on the outside of the car that will operate if the car is either unlocked or if you have that keyless entry system installed in the car. Our particular model, being a regular base LE model, does not have that option, so you do have to use the remote or the key to gain entry to the trunk. Down here we have a single exhaust tip, then we have sort of a almost faux carbon fiber trim strip going across the bottom of the car right here. L, LE, and S models get a 1.8 liter, 132 horsepower 4-cylinder engine. It produces 128 pound-feet of torque. If you opt for the LE Eco model, then you get the same engine fitted with Toyota's new variable valve lift system. It actually allows the intake valves to operate as a throttle body for the engine. It produces 140 horsepower, but torque drops slightly to 126. If you opt for the base L model, you get a 4-speed automatic transmission or a 6-speed manual. The other models all come with a standard CVT transmission, which is brand new for the North American market, and the S model can also be equipped with that same 6-speed manual transmission. The vast majority of the Corollas sold in America will have that CVT, so they'll be getting 29 miles per gallon in the city and 37 on the highway. If you opt for the LE Eco model, then that raises things up to 30 miles per gallon in the city and 42 on the highway. Front seat comfort is fairly average for the compact segment. We have a seat that adjusts manually forward and backward via this lever right here, up and down via this lever right here, and then reclines via this one over here. We don't have a power adjustable seat available in any model of the Corolla, so that is something to keep in mind because you will find it on some of the competition. We do have a tilt telescoping steering column with a decent range of motion. If you opt for the S model, we do get more aggressively bolstered seat bottom cushions and seat back cushions, but no model of Corolla has a power adjustable lumbar support or any adjustable lumbar support whatsoever. Overall, I find the lumbar support in this seat to be about middle of the pack. It is a bit more aggressive in the Honda Civic, although the Civic is not adjustable either. 2014 brings 5 more inches of rear legroom to the Corolla versus the 2013 model year. That's an enormous improvement, and it now makes the Corolla incredibly competitive in this segment. More rear legroom back here than just about every other entry that I can think of. If I sit back in the seat, you'll also notice that these seat bottom cushions have been lengthened to make these rear seats more comfortable for adults, and they're also a little bit higher off the floor than they were before. This front seat's adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. I have probably about 6 or 7 inches of legroom left back here. This is more legroom than you'd find in many mid-size sedans, definitely more than something like a Ford Fusion. If I move over to this middle seat, the middle seat is a little bit higher off the ground, and my hair is touching the ceiling, so that is something to keep in mind if you routinely carry larger passengers. If I move over to the far right seat, this front seat is adjusted all the way back in its track, suitable for a 6'5" plus driver. And as you can see, I have about 2 or 3 inches of legroom left right here in this seat. We don't have a center armrest in the Corolla, but these rear seats do fold in a 60-40 folding fashion. You can see when we do that, these rear headrests on the outboard seats do not adjust, but the center headrest does move up and down. When it comes to cup holders, the Corolla is lagging just a little bit behind the competition. We do have these cup holders that fold out of the center console here, but I'm not sure how these will stand up to abuse by children. We also have bottle holders in each of the rear doors. Let's take a look at the interior in the Corolla. Remember that we are in the LE model, and so there are some slight model differences to keep in mind. Over here we have a height adjustable seatbelt that is standard on all models of the Corolla. If we look up on the ceiling, we have a new knit ceiling fabric that is also standard on all Corolla models. Going over to the doors, you'll find an attractive two-tone color scheme in our particular Corolla. There are several different interior shades that is a little bit unique in this segment. There are about 5 different color combinations you can have. The doors are all hard plastic, but if we move on over to the dashboard, we'll find an array of soft touch plastics going on from the soft touch upper to a soft touch lower in this two-tone section right here. Our particular model has an amber trim strip right across the top. There's also a red strip as well as a blue strip depending on which model you're in. Over here we have our clock high up in the dashboard, and we have our 6.1-inch touchscreen lower in the dashboard. The touchscreen is not standard on all models of Corolla, but you will find it on most models on the dealer lot. Down here we have a manual climate control. There's also a single zone automatic climate control available. Moving over to there, you'll see the auxiliary input right here, as well as a 12-volt power outlet over there. The shifter is essentially the same in all models of the Corolla. Our particular model is an LE model, so we have S and B rather than the manual mode that you'll find in the S version of the Corolla. In Corolla Eco models, you'll have an Eco button over here, and in S models, you'll have a Sport button. We have 2 large cup holders. This little center divider is adjustable. Easy to fit large sodas in there. We have a center console that is not as flimsy as it is in certain other vehicles in the compact sedan segment. We have a 2-stage divider there and a fairly decent cubby. L, LE, and Eco models get this 3-dial instrument cluster, while S models get a different 4-dial instrument cluster with a LCD right in the middle. If we move out, you'll see this new steering wheel that Toyota has been spreading across the lineup. We saw it first in that new Toyota RAV4, and it's now right here in the LE model as well. If you opt for the S model, this does become leather wrapped and does become an awful lot nicer to hold. Our particular model has the urethane wheel. Over here we have our radio controls, volume up and down, forward, backward, etc. We have a mode button over here, back button. On this side of the steering wheel we have a display button which controls that little trip computer that's right there in the speedometer, phone, hang up, as well as the voice command button right there. Cruise control remains on a stalk on the steering wheel. Moving over to this side, we'll find our headlamp controls as well as our power mirrors. It's now time for our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. Opening the trunk of the Corolla, you'll find an opening that is fairly decently sized for this particular class. Now, the trunk lid on the Corolla is not terribly deep because this glass in the back of the Corolla goes quite far towards the rear end of the vehicle, meaning that the opening is fairly tall but not fairly deep. Back here we have a roller bag. This is the largest roller bag you can carry on a domestic flight. As you can see, you can fit quite a number of them in the trunk, along with a decent number of journalists. The trunk has grown for the 2014 model year Corolla, although one thing I'd like to point out is that in something like a Nissan Sentra, you can actually stand this bag up in the trunk long ways, meaning that you can put an awful lot more luggage in that Sentra, even though the trunks are really not terribly far apart. We also do not have a handle to help close the trunk lid, so overall our Corolla scores about 7 out of 10 possible points in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. Not every model of Corolla comes standard with the 6.1-inch touchscreen. However, almost every model of Corolla that you'll find on dealer lots will have this system. Pretty much the only one that doesn't is that base L model. The system is very familiar to you if you've used any of Toyota's recent products in the past, but there are some important differences. First off, we have this new home screen here, which is divided into either 2 or 3 quadrants. It's your choice. You can click this little gear icon and choose how you want that home screen to be set over there in the General tab. But by default, we have these 3 quadrants in this home screen. Over here we have our entertainment, we have our weather down below, and then we have our navigation over here if you opt for the optional navigation software. Over here in the audio tab, we have direct access buttons to our different audio sources, AM, FM, CD, USB, Bluetooth audio, etc. You can now swipe screen across to find iHeartRadio and Pandora app integration with your supported smartphone. Over here on the apps page, you'll find navigation as an app. It's kind of an interesting change. We'll have our eco screen, which is fairly familiar. It's the usual Toyota fuel economy screen. We also have our past record every time you've been in different trips in the car. We can hit the back button over there in the corner if it will let me. We have our audio app, takes us back to there, back to the app screen. Phone's an app, traffic is an app, weather is an app. Traffic and weather are now delivered by HD information services as default. However, if you're in an area where you don't have HD radio, then it will opt to use your smartphone device. You can use the Entune app on your Android. We have an Android device paired with this particular vehicle, or an iPhone device, and then get that weather via the free Entune app. This is where you'll also find OpenTable, Bing, Pandora, Saved Destinations, iHeartRadio, movie tickets, Facebook Places. Facebook Places is part of the new package. We now have Yelp, sports stock information, and fuel prices. All this information is delivered via your smartphone app, so you do have to have that Entune account, although Toyota no longer charges for the Entune service. That is an important change. You can also access the phone by this direct access button right over here, and we do have the ability to do voice text messaging with this system. The system now also is capable of learning your voice, so you can go in the home button or any of the other methods of getting back to the settings, and then you can go to the voice setting, and then you can have the system learn your particular inflections to improve its voice recognition ability. Over here we'll find our micro SD card beneath this little flap right here. That's for our mapping database. We have track up and down buttons. They also work as seek buttons. Tune and scroll buttons in the system are always available to tune or scroll via your track. So right now you can see we're in XM, so you can always tune via that button there. That is an easy way to tune your radio stations, a lot easier than certain other systems. The system overall is very snappy. If we go back to our mapping system here, you'll see that the maps are now a little bit speedier than they were in the past, and that's because they're all stored there on flash disk. So zooming in and out is very quick and easy in this system compared to the older Toyota hard drive based systems. The information on the screen is also very clear, and we now have traffic information on this map as well. Destination entry can be done via either the natural voice commands or via the manual entry method here. The entry is fairly speedy, so if we're going to enter one here so you can see. Right there, and Main Street, for instance, right there. And we hit the go button. You can see how quickly this system routes the address. This is an awful lot faster than other competitive products. And we're fairly far away from that address, as you can see there. So it's 536 miles, and it routed that quickly. This is an awful lot snappier than the other entries in this segment, most notably my Ford Touch. However, at 6.1 inches, this screen is a decent amount smaller than the Ford or the Kia entry in this segment. I don't find the system as easy on the eyes as my Ford Touch, but it is an awful lot more user-friendly in terms of not crashing. The Ford system crashes very frequently. The system offers full voice command of your USB or iDevice music library, just like my Ford Touch and just like the Kia Yuvo system. The Kia Yuvo system probably ranks top in my book because it has that larger screen. It does have the looks of my Ford Touch for the most part, but it doesn't crash like my Ford Touch. This is probably a solid number 3 entry in this segment, however. This is light years ahead of anything that you'll find in the Honda Civic. The Honda Civic just has that 2-tier system, and I don't find it very intuitive to use or to navigate around. It's definitely not as speedy as this system. I also rank this above the current system in the current Chevy Cruze. I don't find that system particularly easy to use either. The biggest change for the 2014 model year is the continuously variable transmission under the hood. This is very different from a stepped automatic transmission, which only has a fixed number of gears. Basically, this transmission has an infinite number of gears between its lowest ratio and its highest ratio, so the feel is very different out on the road. Fortunately, this 1.8-liter engine doesn't produce a whole lot of power, so that CVT is a good thing in this particular vehicle because you need all the help you can get for acceleration in the Corolla. We scored 0 to 60 in just over 9.7 seconds, which is fairly average in this segment. It's very similar to what you find in the Sentra and a number of the other entries. 0 to 30, however, is a little bit slow. It's just under 4 seconds. That is a marked difference between this and something like a Ford Focus or a Kia Forte, which does have a much better 0 to 30 time. So if you're stoplight racing, you'll get off the line an awful lot faster in some of the traditional automatic equipped cars in this particular segment. In terms of CVT performance, the Corolla is probably the best in this segment because Honda has yet to bring their Earth Dreams CVT down to the compact segment. So the Earth Dreams CVT has probably the best overall CVT performance that I've ever driven. It shifts ratios very, very quickly. The problem that most people have with the Nissan CVTs is that if you're driving along like we are right now at around 40 miles an hour or so, and you floor the engine, you don't get that instant acceleration feel that you do in a regular automatic when you downshift and you start accelerating. The Honda CVT, as well as this new Toyota CVT, however, have that feeling of a downshift, so they immediately switch to a lower ratio and then you accelerate, rather than the Nissan transmission, which changes ratios relatively slowly. This transmission also tries to mimic a 7-speed automatic under certain conditions. So if you're in the sport mode in this transmission, or if you're in the S model and you hit that sport button and you floor the car, you're going to see 7 imitation shifts as you accelerate up to the maximum speed of the Corolla. It is kind of an interesting feeling. They're not quite as crisp as you'd find in a regular automatic transmission, although they're better than the imitation shifts that you do find in the current Nissan Sentra. I like CVTs, and I think this transmission is exactly the right direction for the Toyota Corolla. It helps improve fuel economy, it also helps improve performance, but most importantly, it helps improve daily living with your Corolla. So if you're climbing up a hill or you're going up an incline, etc., you don't have to wait for the transmission to downshift. It means that the car doesn't do that slow down, downshift, speed up, upshift, slow down routine that you find in the old 4-speed Corolla. It's much more drivable in this car. Performance is also considerably improved over that old Corolla, not just in 0 to 60 times, but also in passing maneuvers, where that 4-speed transmission just didn't have the right ratio for passing frequently, and this transmission always has the right ratio. The ride in the Corolla is very middle of the road. It's neither too hard nor too soft. It's probably very appropriate for the mass market of this segment that Toyota is going for. Cabin noise is a little bit loud, however. We ranked about 74 decibels at 50 miles an hour on an asphalt road. We're not on our normal asphalt road since we are testing this car up in Seattle, so do keep that in mind. But this does appear to be a decent amount louder than the Kia Forte and that new Honda Civic. And the Honda Civic used to be accused of being a very loud ride, and now it's scoring fairly middle of the pack, with this Corolla being just a little bit louder. If you want the quietest ride, then you're going to need to look for something like a Ford Focus. When it comes to steering feel, the important thing to remember is electric power steering, and that's dominating the compact car segment. And as a result, there's very little daylight between any of the entries in terms of steering feel, steering accuracy, and steering weight. They're all very, very similar. The Mazda 3 and the Ford Focus do tend to be a little heavier. Kia and Hyundai allow you to change the steering effort, but they don't really improve steering feel when you change it. They just let you go from very light to fairly heavy. But overall, they're all fairly similar. So anyone that tells you that the Toyota Corolla is awful and the Mazda 3 is just absolutely fabulous is really deluding themselves at least a little bit, because they're all very, very similar. Ride and handling are very middle of the road in the Corolla, and that shouldn't really surprise anybody. Being one of the volume sellers in this segment, it's very obvious that Toyota has tuned the Corolla for the average person's preference. And most people don't tend to like very hard or very soft rides, so the Corolla slots right in there in the middle. Keeping in mind that I haven't been driving on my regular daily commute, fuel economy in the Corolla has been very good for a compact car. We've been averaging about 29 miles per gallon overall, mostly in city driving in fairly heavy traffic. We've not been taking the Corolla on very many highways here in Seattle, but the few highways that we have been taking it on, we've been averaging in the high 30s. These are very good numbers for the compact segment. If, however, you really want the best fuel economy in your compact car, then your best bet is to look for something like a Prius C, because the Prius C does get very high fuel economy, considerably higher than the Corolla, without sacrificing too much in terms of room or performance. We averaged between 50 and 60 miles per gallon on the highway the last time we had the Prius C, and that's considerably better than this Corolla. Toyota has priced the new Corolla from $18,300 to just under $24,000. That makes the Corolla one of the least expensive vehicles in this class. It's obvious by the pricing of the Corolla, as well as just the way the Corolla is designed, that this is targeted at the meat of the compact sedan segment. So you won't find things like heated steering wheels or cooled seats or heated rear seats or any of those sorts of features in the 2014 Corolla. If you want those more luxury-oriented features, then you're going to need to go for something like a Focus or a Kia Forte, but it will cost you an awful lot more than this 2014 Corolla. Which compact sedan is right for you depends very much on your priority list. Something like a Mazda 3 or a Ford Focus sedan is going to be the better handling and performing alternative. Something like this is going to be the best value alternative in this segment, depending on which options you get. If you want the ultimate value with a high luxury content, then a Kia Forte is very hard to beat. If you want gadget content and luxury content, then something like a Ford Focus or that Kia Forte again would be the cars for you. I like the new Jetta, but I don't find the Jetta as appealing as any of the ones that I've already mentioned. I do rank this above the 2013 Honda Civic, although I do find the Civic to be a quieter ride. So if you value quiet rides, then oddly enough, that 2013 Honda Civic, a car that's been known for being fairly loud on the road, is probably a good choice. Overall, my personal ranking is definitely the new Kia Forte first, this new Corolla second, then probably something along the lines of a Focus, tying with the Honda Civic. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been our look at the 2014 Toyota Corolla. One thing that I'd like you to keep in mind is the order in which these videos have been recorded and published right here on YouTube. When we last recorded the video of the Kia Forte, the Toyota Corolla 2014 model didn't exist. And when we recorded the 2013 Honda Civic and I said it was the best car in the segment for me, that 2014 Kia Forte didn't exist. So that is one important thing to keep in mind. As I said, at this exact moment, I do like the Kia Forte just a little bit more than this Toyota Corolla, but for me, I like my cars almost fully loaded, and that does have a huge impact on my personal impression of the vehicle. If you're going to go for just the average vehicle, then I would probably take this Toyota Corolla over that Kia Forte. I do like the CVT, I like the look of the interior, and I do like the outside of this 2014 model year. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at that new 2014 Mazda 3, so be sure and stay tuned for that one because that could shake things up just a little bit. In the meantime, go ahead and click on the subscribe banner on the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of our latest videos, including that Mazda 3 video. You can go ahead and comment on this video, send me messages right here on YouTube, and then we'll see you next week. The games you play, you would always win. Set fire to the rain, the burn as I touched your face. And when you tried, as I heard you screaming out your name. Fire to the brain. Oh, why am I